before I start with today's conversation, let me share with all of you a very interesting incident of my life that could move, inspire, and motivate most of you. It's an interesting incident, very interesting incident that happened when I was teaching in SD College, Barnala. I got duty as a supervisor in a college for as an examiner for the examinations in a law college. It was actually Pai Gurdas College of Law, Sangrur. And I always try to think and behave out of the box. So it's an important, a very life-changing incident that I am going to tell you. That because in the examination center as a supervisor, my main duty is to stop the children from cheating, from dodging, from copying, and also it's very important to control the students. So my basic duty as an invigilator or as a supervisor is to control the students, to supervise the students, and to make the people, make the students involved in examination, or I mean the taking of examination. Hello everyone, I am HS Dimple. Welcome to the channel. Let me tell you the trick. Let me tell you that interesting story. Actually, in the examination center, my basic duty was to supervise and control the students and to make them and to stop them from copying if they do, if they cheat, if they dodge. I did that, and I did that in an interesting way, very successfully, without asking the students not to copy. I didn't ask the students not to dodge. I didn't ask the student not to look at each other, I didn't ask them not to ask anything about the examination, about anything in the examination center. I did not utter a word in the sense that looks asking, that looks requesting. I used a trick, and that trick was devoid of any type of violence, because I think that even speaking loudly and to speak loud and clear is also a sort of violence. So this violence is something that I never use in my life. So I used that trick. Most of the times, what the supervisors do, what the examiners do, what the teachers do, what the professors do, what the lecturers do, or what the invigilators do, they speak loudly. They ask the students not to copy, not to cheat, not to look at each other, not to look at one another, not to ask anything from other candidate or student. They even ask them not to look around. They ask them not to tell anything or ask anything. They request, they threaten, and sometimes they even take the copy of the answer book and the question paper of a student and ask them to leave the examination center. That is their authority, that they use their power, their authority, but it is violence. It can be used, it is your sweet will, but as a teacher, as a professor, as a lecturer, as a supervisor or invigilator, I never did so. But what was the trick that I used? That trick is an understanding of the psychology of the students, the mindset of a person appearing in the examination center. So what was that trick? Basically, when we ask the students, when we threaten the students, when we request the students, it is a threat, it is a request, or it is the direct method. Here you give the willpower to the students. Here you give the command to the students, and the students become powerful, and you become a helpless spectator. But here in the present case, I had the control in my own hand without even knowing, without even letting them know what the trick I was using. and they were unaware, but they were not alert to the, they were not conscious to what I was doing. They were thinking elsewhere, but they were controlled. I was not dependent upon the willpower of the students or the conscience of the students. I touched their conscience. I touched their consciousness. I touched their heart rather than mind. How loud and clear you may be when you ask the students not to copy. Ultimately, you give the command to the students, but I never did so. I used that trick. And it is an interesting trick, and it's not a very difficult trick. It's a trick you can use. Every person can use. Every teacher can use. I used this trick. How I used that? How I used that trick? I had the list of all the names of all the students. I have the seating arrangement in hand. I had I have the data, I have the information regarding the students. That was the need of the moment. Here there were names, their roll numbers, the examination today that they are appearing in, or the paper that they were taking. So I had this enough information, but I used that were just the names. What the trick was? The trick was very simple. I I saw, and it is usual that the students are sitting in queues, in rows, and when you look at the seating arrangement, you will know who is sitting on the front and who is sitting on the at the last bench. On the left hand side, who is sitting in the middle, row, and who is sitting in the right hand side row. And you also know the names of the students, just who is sitting on the first bench, who is sitting on the last bench, who is sitting on the second bench, who is sitting on the third or fourth bench. So when I had the names of all the students, I learnt the names of some of the students by looking at their faces. When you look at the name and look at the face of that person, or the garments, or the uniform, or his clothing, you just try to identify the name and recognize that person with that name. When you try to match, you just get a cue, and according to that cue, I learned the names of a few of the students. And then when somebody was on the gate, trying to ask something from me, so I would go to the gate, or somebody would come to me. So at that time I would just keep looking at the students, and when somebody moves, I would just look at the seating arrangement and call him. And there are a few naughty students who are causing the trouble again and again, who cause the trouble time and again. So learn the names of those students, or the candidates, or the persons appearing in the examination center. So by this method, I learned the names of a few naughty students, and the students who are sitting at the last and at the first bench. So in this way, when I would move around, and when I would be behind the students, and they would think that the teacher is behind, and they would try to ask somebody else, they would try to cheat. And when somebody's head was moving, I would say Gurjeet, Ramesh, Neha, and when I would call a person by name, he would be shocked and surprised, and would be full of awe and shock. And that way I controlled their minds, because all the students of that class, all the classmates, they were shocked, because they were shocked, how could I, a person who has come from outside, could know the names of the students. So that was basically a trick. They were surprised at my memory, but the fact is that I was not using my memory. I was using a trick only, because because when you are a supervisor, you don't have any other task than to just roam about and control the students. And at that time, when your mind is empty and is not involved somewhere, you can utilize your mind for just learning the names of a few students. And if you do, you can shock and surprise and control the minds rather and the hearts. You can control the minds and the hearts of the students rather than their bodies, rather than controlling them, rather than using violence or threatening voice. Just by shocking the students, you can control. So that way, I surprised them. And rather than cheating or copying or dodging or thinking of cheating the students, cheating rather themselves and cheating the examination process, they were shocked and they would just look haywire about me, like how could I learn their names. And after the examination was over, they would come to me and they would express their shock, their surprise. And most of them are in touch with me even today. Most of them, because they were the law students, most of them are good lawyers, well settled advocates, senior lawyers, or some of them even judges or justices. And even now, when they call me, they just express their surprise and shock. Like, how could you remember our names? How could you learn our names? But the trick was very easy, and that was the trick that I used. So dear friends, today in this video I have tried to just tell you, share with you an interesting story and the trick that when you call somebody by name, he gets interested in you and in himself, because the sweetest voice in the world is your name. To you, the most sweetest sound in the world is your name, and that should be pronounced correctly. And if that is written, it should be written correctly. If you mistakenly, inadvertently write it wrongly or pronounce that wrongly, that would be something falling upon you. So this is the trick that you can also use. And this video is also being made in Punjabi, and if you want to see that in Punjabi, you can see the description section. Thank you so much for kind hearing, for patient hearing, for watching this video to the end. Thank you so much.